Hi guys, my name is Bas and welcome to episode number 9 of my RStudio tutorials here on YouTube. First of all, if this video is helpful to you, then please leave a like on this video and furthermore subscribe to this YouTube channel. I want to make this channel grow as much as possible, so every subscription counts, so please press that subscribe button. Furthermore, I do recommend watching the previous episodes. If you're new to R, in episode 1 and 2 I explained the very basics of R, so I do recommend watching those before watching this video. So, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to have a look at how to make graphs and charts, and we're doing that by using the GGplot function. And we're first of all gonna load up a package called the tidyverse, like we do in every single episode. Library, tidy, verse, and then Ctrl Enter, and then the tidyverse package has been loaded. If you haven't installed it yet and you want to know how to install a package, then check out episode number 1, in which I explain it in more details. So we're going to work with the Star Wars dataset today. So the first thing we will do is just take a quick look at the Star Wars dataset by pressing View and then Star Wars. And then you can see that it has a complete dataset with height, which we will be using, mass we will be using, hair color, skin color, eye color, birth year, sex, gender, and species, and a lot more. So what we're going to do today is take a look at some bar charts, at some histograms, at a density plot, and at a scatter plot. And the first thing we're going to do is make a bar chart, and the variable we're going to use for that is gender. So you can see that gender consists of masculine and feminine values, and we're going to make a bar chart for that. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, we press the dataset which we will be using, which is Star Wars. Then we press the pipe operator, which is Ctrl-Shift-M. And then we're going to use GGplot, and then between brackets, and then AES, which stands for aesthetics. And then the X, so the independent variable, is going to be gender in this case. And then 2 times close the brackets. And then this time we don't use the pipe operator, but when you're working with graphs and charts, you press the plus sign. And then we're going to use the geom lower dash bar, which means that we're going to create a bar chart. And that's all you need to do. So you select the data set which you want to use, you select ggplot, you type in AES for aesthetics, and then in aesthetics you type everything, so all the functions, all the axes, all the variables you want to be part of it. But in this case we're only using the X axis, which will be gender, and then afterwards you press the plus, and then you type the bar, you type geom, and then the type of chart or graph which you want to have, which in this case is the geom bar chart. Then you press Ctrl Enter, and what you then see in a separate window is that we now have a bar chart of feminine. You can see the frequency of that. You can see the frequency of masculine, gender, and we can see the frequency of the not available, so therefore missing values. So that's how you can make a bar chart. What we're also going to do is create a histogram, and a histogram you make for numeric variables. So gender was a categorical variable, and height, for example, is a numeric variable. So how do we make a histogram? Well, in exactly the same way. We start off by typing Star Wars and then the pipe operator. Then you press ggplot, and then AES for aesthetics, and then the X in this case is height instead of gender. And then after the brackets you press a plus, and then on the next line you type geom lower dash histogram, and then you press Ctrl Enter, and then a new screen opens with the histogram. So there you can see the frequencies, so how the height variable is distributed. So that's how you can make a histogram. It's quite easy. So now we want to this is how you can make graphs and charts with only one variable, but you can also make sure that there are 2 variables in it. And what we're going to do is we want a density plot, so a density graph, density chart of height, but this time we wanted to have 2 separate charts in it, so 2 graphs, and one for the male sex and one for the female sex. So we're going to include both the sex variable and the height variable, so it's going to be multiple ones. So how do we get a density graph which shows that? Well, first of all you type Star Wars again, and then the pipe operator. Then we filter And sex is going to be, we want only the sex which is in, and then you type the percentage and then in, and then the percentage sign again, and then the C from contamination, and then male, comma, female. Okay, so what we did here is we're going to filter, and we're going to use the sex variable like I just said, but there are multiple sexes, and but we only want, for this case, we only want males and females. So that's why we filter for sex in the contamination, which is other word for combination. We want it to be either the male sex, the male sex or the female sex. We don't want the other sexes in this case to be included. And then we press the pipe operator again, and then we're going to use GGplot. And afterwards we type again AES for aesthetics. Then the X in this case is going to be again height. The X is going to be height. Then a comma, which is important. Then the color is going to be sex, and fill is also going to be sex. And make sure to use commas in between those. So the x-axis is going to be height, and we're going to create two separate graphs which are going to be colored and filled in with the color of the two sexes being male and female. Then afterwards we press plus, and then an enter, and then we're going to use this time the geom density, and then the geom density, and we're going to use the alpha set for, in this case, 0.2, but you can also use another alpha. It creates the colors which you'll be using. And then we press Ctrl Enter, and then this is not the right one. Geom density, yes. Okay, the geom density chart, and now you can see a chart on the right, which is a density chart, and we can see that there are actually two different graphs. One for the females. So the height, the frequency, and therefore the height per for females, and for males. So this is how you can include multiple variables, because we are now using both the height variable and the sex variable. So that is it for the density plot. And what we're now gonna do is create the final chart for this episode, but it's gonna be even more sophisticated, and it's gonna look like this. This is the end result, and what we're therefore going to do is we want to make a chart with the mass per height. So we want, if you grow higher, then your mass increases, probably. But we do not simply want to put in height and mass, but we also want to make a difference between the two genders, so between the feminine gender and the masculine gender. So gender is going to be the third and therefore moderating variable. And last but not least, we also want to include the species of all the different respondents. So we want the color of the dots on the scatter plot to be the species, which you can see on the right. So this is what we're going to create, and I'll now show how you can actually do that. So we start off again by typing Star Wars, and then the pipe operator, and then we use the filter which we're going to use is going to be gender, and then between percentages in the combination of either masculine or feminine, or feminine. So this is the same as we just did. We're going to use a filter for gender. So the gender can only be masculine or feminine. Because there are multiple genders in this data set, but we only want to take a look at masculine and feminine. So it's the same as we just did with sex, with male and female, but this time we use gender and masculine and feminine. And we're gonna apply another filter. So first we use the pipe operator again, and then we're gonna use another filter, which is gonna be that the mass is going to be lower than 500. And I'll explain in a second why we have chosen for that filter as well. Then we press the pipe operator, and then we're going to work with the GGplot again, which is going to start off with aesthetics. And this time the X variable is the x variable is gonna be the height, then the comma, then the y variable is gonna be the mass, and then a comma, and then the color is gonna be the species in this case, and then close the brackets, and then a plus. Then we're gonna use, in this case, the geom points, the geom lower dash point, and you can leave the brackets empty, and then another plus, and then we're gonna use the facet wrap for, in this case, and then look at the sign which I'm using, the curvy wavy line, and for gender. So that means that you want to split up the graph in two, so for the two genders, and then another plus, and then we're gonna apply the labels, which is called labs, but it means labels, and we want the title of the title is gonna be, and then between quotation marks, mass per height overview, and then between the x value is gonna be called height, between quotation marks again, and then the y variable is going to be called mass between quotation marks. So, to run through this code again, we're going to filter gender to only be masculine or feminine. We want the mass to be lower than 500. We want the aesthetics that the x-axis is called height, the y-axis is called mass, and the color is going to be the species. We're going to use a point, so a scatter plot graph, so geom point, and we want the facet wrap, so we want the graph to be split for the genders, and then the labels of the chart can be mass per height overview, height, and mass. And then we press Ctrl Enter, and then we get, tada, this beautiful scatter plot. And we can see that there's a scatter plot for feminine, a scatter plot for masculine, and we can see that if the height increases for men, then the mass also increases. And it's not really the same for feminine, so that's really interesting. But for men, we can clearly see that the higher they are, the more mass they have. And you can look at the different species. So this is how you include 4 variables in total: height, mass, species, and gender. So we've included 4 variables. So that's actually really easy to do. Now, last but not least, I'm going to show you what happens if we remove the filter from mass times 500 and then run the entire code again. It's going to look like this. And it's all, then the men one, the one for masculine, is really distorted because of the outlier being, the Star Wars fans know that it's Jabba the Hutt, who has a massive height, has a massive weight, so a big mass, even though his height is not very high. So this is such an outlier that it disturbs the whole scatter plot. So that's why I applied a filter to be maximum 500. So we excluded the outlier of Jabba the Hutt, because this outlier ruins your entire scatter plot. And we wanted it to look like, I've already closed that one. We wanted it to look like the previous one, so excluding the outlier. So that's how you make bar charts, histograms, density plots, and scatter plots using GGplot. If this was helpful, then please leave a like on this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And for now, I will see you guys on the next episode. Ciao!